Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Kramer, and I am the Alumni Engagement Program Manager at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. These are certainly trying times, and here at CU Boulder, we have gathered our world-renowned faculty and alumni to provide frank and timely insights for life during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Today is the second of 8 webinars in this COVID-19 related webinar series. To view upcoming webinars, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. Click the drop-down arrow and click Attend Online Webinars. For today's webinar, we're excited to have Associate Professor at the College of Media, Communication, and Information, Kelty Logan, here presenting on Brands Must Matter. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask Kelty, please send a question through the chat interface. We will monitor questions as they are submitted, and Kelty will respond to them at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please notify us through the chat interface and one of our support specialists will touch base. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants tomorrow, along with a survey link and supplemental resources from today's presentation. Now, I am so excited to introduce today's speaker. Associate Professor Kelty Logan has more than 20 years of experience as a marketing executive in the advertising, broadcast network, and product marketing industries. She worked for multinational advertising agencies in New York and Europe, managed program promotion for NBC, and directed brand management for Mars, Inc. As an academic, Kelty focuses on the challenges of the new media environment. In particular, she is fascinated by the changing patterns of media usage resulting from digital technology and its impact on the advertising industry. She received her BA in history from UCLA, an MBA from Tulane University, and a PhD in advertising from the University of Texas at Austin. Welcome, Kelty, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for inviting me to speak today on this topic that really means a great deal to me, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this webinar. It's no secret that in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, businesses are already planning for a recession, trying to develop plans for sustainable, profitable growth during reduced times. And action now is absolutely essential to limiting the damage that's caused by this freeze on employment and declining sales and diminishing consumer optimism. But today, my focus is brands. For me, brands, whether products or services, are the heart of the matter. Brands represent choice. They represent the empowerment of the consumer to make those choices. And they represent stability, normalcy, and prosperity. And for the most part, consumers recognize that. Kantar Consulting, which is a global consultancy, reports that from over 35,000 consumers surveyed, they understand that they want brands and their makers to take care of consumers, and they realize that the businesses have to stay in business in order to get this done. In fact, only 8% of those surveyed believe that brands should stop advertising. They do, however, an overwhelming majority of them stated that brands should do their part, supporting government and society. It's tricky, isn't it, to figure out a way forward with your brands during a period of crisis and not feel like or look like a war profiteer. And I use that analogy advisedly because this is a period of time that no one's gone through before in their lifetime, or very few people are left to remember World War II. And in fact, this period of uncertainty and scarcity and nobody knows when it's going to end reminds me a lot of my mother's stories about being here in the United States during World War II. And just like then, I believe that once this crisis is over, people are going to rush back to normalcy. People are going to shop again. They're going to buy cars. They're going to go to restaurants. They're going to go on vacation, but they will remember what happened during this period of time. And we need to be thoughtful about how we move forward through this. The focus always has to be on your brand and on the consumer's perceived value of the brand. It's important, of course, to remember that value is not synonymous with price. In fact, the way I define it, value determines price because, for example, this is the way I explain it to my students. How much would you be willing to buy this cup of coffee for in a plain white paper cup? And how much would you pay for a Starbucks coffee? Because the difference between those two price points is the value you attribute to that brand. It's an added value that is based on everything that Starbucks has performed for you in the past. It's very important to realize that moving forward through this crisis, it's actually possible to add value to your brands. The perception of how valued your brands are will be affected, however, by your marketing efforts and how relevant they are to the brand and how valuable they are to the consumer. A research document was released on March 19th by Beyond Research, which is a marketing consultancy headquartered in Milan. And the purpose of this document was to tell brands, those who are running brands, how they could market them to Italians during this period of enforced isolation at home. They proposed an archetype of 4 different fear management strategies and suggested that these be kept in mind by marketers as they move forward. And what I'm going to do is use that archetype to assess some of the marketing efforts we're seeing around us right now. What Beyond Research stated is that consumers tend to manage their fears using 4 different strategies: denial and challenge, denial and mocking, acknowledgement and normalization, recognition and escape. If we start with denial and challenge, these are the people who diminish the importance of what we're going through and really don't want to comply, a refusal for compliance. These people are pretty angry. They need to blame someone for what we're going through. They're angry, they're exacerbated by the unfairness of the situation. And we all see examples of this as we speak. Brands can manage the anger. We can take on some of that anger and express it in a constructive way by taking public action against bad actors. Facebook, for example, removed Brazilian President Bolsonaro's video, citing misinformation. They also banned ads for various products, citing profiteerism, saying that they were price gouging and providing false claims. For example, COVID-19 test kits that didn't work. Amazon removed product listings for products that they also said were profiteering. But as much as we can do that, it's far more important, I believe, for brands to identify new heroes and symbols of hope for the people who are coping with this on a daily basis. For example, Dove talks about the beauty of courage. And Budweiser salutes the home team.
This Bud's for the Blues, the Reds, and the Warriors. This Bud's for the Magic, the Athletics, the Giants, and the Jazz. This Bud's for the Trailblazers, the Braves, the Yankees, and the Angels. This Bud's for the home team.
We're shifting our sports investments to help our heroes on the front lines by using stadiums to host American Red Cross blood drives during the COVID-19 crisis. Kaiser Permanente uses their website to salute their doctors. Mark Zuckerberg, who's always in trouble for something, is giving free ads to World Health Organization to fight the misinformation that is cropping up so abundantly online. But brands can also help the people who are helping, which is different than recognizing them. This is actual help. Marriott, for example, sent me an email. I'm a frequent user of Marriott Hotel, and they are partnering with American Express and JP Morgan Chase to provide $10 million worth of hotel stays for doctors and nurses in 8 major cities, including New York and Los Angeles. In other communities, they're providing deep discounts for their hotel rooms that are near hospitals for all healthcare workers. All of these brands have messages that are very consistent with their brand missions. They're all talking very much in line with what you are used to hearing them talk about. And in fact, the Dove and Budweiser ads and Kaiser Permanente's salute are extensions of their ongoing marketing message. I believe that for those people who have resorted to denying the seriousness of the crisis and challenging the facts, brands can add value by providing evidence of the crisis, giving voice to the problem solvers, and becoming part of the solution. When we talk about denial and mocking, I think all of us intuitively understand this one. Sometimes you just need comedy. And these are 3 brands that I think have done a great job of sending out a very constructive message in a very comedic way.
Your country needs you to stay on your couch and order in. Do your part, and we'll do ours. Order through the Burger King app, and the delivery fees are on us. So staying home doesn't just make us all safer, it makes you a couch patriot. And to help healthcare heroes, we are donating Whopper sandwiches to nurses. And we are also proudly supporting the American Nurses Foundation. Stay home of the Whopper.
Well, we are not going to see the Jeep commercial, which is a play on their Super Bowl commercial that talks about every day feels like every other day, but hang in there because trails will be open again soon. And I think that that too is a message of optimism, right? You know, we need to be reminded that this is going to end. So for those of us who've resorted to denying the seriousness of the virus and have a need to mock it, brands can add value by confirming the need for social distancing and finding humor in the situation. There's nothing wrong with laughing at ourselves some of the time. Acknowledgement and normalization is the second tactic that is used to deal with fear, according to Beyond Research. These are the people who want to impose order on the chaos and normalize the abnormal. And I imagine this speaks to just about everybody participating in this webinar. We're the ones who are showing up for something that would have been happening anyway and trying to make it as normal as possible. One of the things brands can do, depending on what your brand is remind us of the positives of being locked up at home.
Yo soy tu hogar y voy a estar para ti, aguantando todo lo que venga.
That commercial was produced by McCann in Madrid. But in addition to reminding us that staying home can be fun, brands can also offer different ways to do the things we did before. For example, my health club sends me twice a week, emails telling me things I can do at home to stay fit. This is a 90-day free trial period for Peloton. 2 days ago, I got a map of the Cherry Creek Trail that I could walk or run. They're reaching out to me and keeping in touch with me and staying on mission. My hair salon, which is a national franchise, Drybar, started out by sending me helpful videos on how to blow dry my hair, but more recently, they've started sending me offers to buy now, blow dries later. And so I can buy 2 blow dries in the future at a discount, and all of the cash they take in will go to their stylists. This is similar to the restaurant gift cards that people were buying like mad in New York. The idea here is sort of a war bond philosophy where you're paying the money up front, knowing that there are going to be good times ahead, and we're going to cash those in when the crisis abates. I love the fact that Starbucks has been able to maintain counter service in certain locations and drive-through service in certain locations. On my infrequent times out of the house, it is sheer heaven to pull into a drive-through and get a latte. It makes me feel like there's normalcy in a cup. So for those of us who cope by acknowledging the crisis and trying to normalize things, brands add value by being useful. Explain your usefulness. And you're being very valuable by reminding us that we should carry on. This is not a time to hang out and watch endless television. This is a time to carry on your mission, your personal missions. And the fourth group of people that they recognized in the research were the people who recognize that the virus is a serious issue, but they have this overwhelming need to escape, to get out. They're sad and worried, they're powerless and disoriented, they're experiencing desperate cabin fever. And this is actually a great description of my students, their first week home. Most of my students were freshmen. I had a huge class of over 200. And they'd been on their own for almost an entire school year, and they got sent home. And back at home, this is very much who they were. A couple of weeks in, they're all back to normal, but they definitely went through this period. And when you're talking to people in that condition, brands can provide comfort. For one thing, they can make it easier for you to reach out and talk to people. Nothing made me happier than getting awakened very early one morning by a text from Verizon announcing that they had added 15 gigabytes of data to my plan at no charge from March 25th to April 30th. I've always been loyal to Verizon, but boy, they got me for life now. Brands can also offer protection. I think the best example of that is what Costco did. And what Costco did is now being copied by most grocery stores in the country. And that is providing special hours for the most vulnerable parts of our population to shop. People who have disabilities, people who are elderly are offered this opportunity where there's fewer shoppers in the store, the shelves are still stocked, there are people manning the shelves, helping people reach stuff. Everybody is gloved and masked. There are huge sneeze guards protecting both the cashiers and the customers. This provides an absolutely safe feeling environment. And the businesses who do this will be remembered for doing this. In addition to offering comfort and protection, brands can offer encouragement. Well, this was a wonderful Kaiser Permanente commercial talking about how important it is for you to stay home so that the first responders can get their work done. And it was beautifully done and very much in the spirit of their ongoing communication. And finally, brands can evoke normalcy. What are we doing right now but recreating a conference? And we're using Zoom, a product I never used before this virus hit, and now I'm completely addicted to it. Zoom has a faithful new user in me. I also use Skype, and many of us are using WhatsApp, which is a great way to keep in touch with people internationally. And by the way, what a great way to be able to talk to your friends in far different time zones, because since we aren't interrupting them in the office, we can talk to them more frequently. And it's been wonderful to be able to talk to my friends overseas via WhatsApp. Netflix has a brand new service called Netflix Party, which is a way to watch a program with your friends online. So you can chat during the program, recreating, getting together and watching an episode of whatever. Another way to recreate normalcy. You know, make no mistake, there are brands that are going to be beneficiaries of this virus. There are brands, and 4 of them I just mentioned, who are experiencing incredible growth thanks to this virus. Where there is a problem, where there is a crisis, there is opportunity. And these brands, by keeping us connected to the people who are important to us and helping us experience camaraderie or group purpose, are becoming very important to us. So moving forward, those brands that are beneficiaries of the crisis have an opportunity to create a sustainable brand identity. And I hope I'm not alone in thinking that many of the online brands do not at present actually have defined brand identities. They have been the beneficiaries of being first in the market and getting lots of attention and gathering up users. But as the inevitable competition comes on board, the fact that you really don't have a mental image of what those brands represent makes it very hard for them to move forward and create other aspects of their brand that are consistent with their brand identity, since they don't know what their brand identity is. It's also a time for all brands to take a very close look at your loyal users. Pay attention to your loyal users. Be helpful to your loyal users. It's also a time to expand your loyal user base. But don't try to do that if you can't focus on quality control. Make sure that the experience a new user is having is perfect. If you can't guarantee that, don't go after new users. And finally, there are risks of opportunism that you must avoid at all costs, and the appearance of taking opportunistic strategies in hand. I am actually as against price cutting as I am against price gouging. I think it's very dangerous to get in the habit of providing what you would normally offer at a certain price at a much reduced price. I think a far better strategy is to add value to that. Provide free shipping. Keep your price stable during this period of time. Don't go up, don't go down. When I talk about a brand discovering its identity, I just saw this a couple of days ago, and I think it is an absolutely fantastic job on the part of Facebook. I think they've found their identity.
Was that a pivotal historical moment we just went stumbling past? Well, here we are, dancing in the rumbling dark, so come a little closer. Give me something to grasp. Give me your beautiful, crumbling heart. We're working every dread day that is given us, feeling like the person people meet really isn't us, like we're gonna buckle underneath the trouble, like any minute now the struggle's gonna finish us. And then we smile at all our friends. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in people's faces. I love people's faces.
So in conclusion, in my opinion, now is not the time to go dark. Now is the time for aggressive marketing, but you have to do it well. All of your actions must be consistent with the brand's DNA. And by that, I mean the brand's personality, the brand's mission. It needs to make sense within the context of your brand. And wherever possible, you need to add perceived value, value to the people who are buying your brand, value to the people who are making your brand, selling your brand, and value to the community. Do not miss an opportunity if it makes sense to do so. And now I would love to hear your questions and comments. I'm sorry this went a little bit longer than I anticipated. Technical difficulty.
This was fantastic, Kelty. Great information. And please, as a reminder, feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A or chat features. We have a few questions coming in already, so we'll start there. We have a question from Jillian. How do you keep up with the right messaging when communications can feel tone deaf one day to the next?
You hear about this a lot. And I think that the answer is if your message is relevant, if you're showing pictures that are at odds with the message, but only slightly, deal with it because people know where you are. Let's not underestimate the consumers. You notice that most of the commercials I showed you had still photography. We don't have production crews out there. There's a certain amount of work you can do within the lines, and there's certain stuff you can't get done. I think what's far more important is to worry about positioning your brand in this day and age the best you possibly can. Work with what you've got. And don't acknowledge the slip-ups, just move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. The next question comes in from Peter. What communication mediums do you consider the best and worst during COVID-19?
A lot of that has to do with what kind of brand or service you're offering, whether you're local, whether you're national, what kinds of budgets you're working with. If you are a local business like my gym, reaching out via email is fantastic. I read the emails and I get hundreds of emails because I've got all those students sending me emails. Reaching out on a very personal level to your local clientele is a very good way to keep your name front and center. If you have an advertising budget and you're speaking to a national constituency, I would go ahead and use television. I would use live video on Facebook. I would use everything in your arsenal. Pinterest must be dying right now with all the photography, but the important thing is to remember who your target is, what platforms are they using, and get on those platforms. And if you have a chance to make a national message, I would make a national message. Remember, you're never going to have a better opportunity to talk to people at home than you have right now.
Great. Thank you for that information. And you've touched on this a little bit, but we're getting this question a lot. This comes from Rachel. How can a brand stay relevant if they are shut down?
Well, there again, I would point to Drybar and my gym as examples of shut down businesses that are staying relevant by staying top of mind with me and reminding me and getting me to buy into the future so that I'll be at their doorstep the minute their doors are open. So reaching out to me in a very personal way, in this case via email, Marriott did the same via email, is a terrific strategy in my opinion. There were also examples abounding of businesses that were going to have to close their doors and they had lots of stock and they needed to get rid of it and they had very innovative ways of doing that. But I think for an ongoing strategy, what you want to do is make your brand important to the people who've been using your brand, talk to your loyal users, and remind them that you're going to be there when this is all over.
Great, fantastic. Then we have a question from Michelle. What if your brand's only role to play is the same as it has always been? AKA, I have no new news.
Well, there's no rule that you have to have new news. Zoom doesn't have new news. Be who you are. I think, well, I guess the best example I can give is the one that was given to me long ago. I worked on the Mars business on the agency side once upon a time. And when I was first getting familiar with the business, I realized their sales skyrocketed during the Depression. And I mentioned that to one of the owners and he said, well, you know, when people have no money, you can't go on vacation, you can't go shopping. There are a lot of things you can't do, but you can buy a 5-cent candy bar and it will make you happier. And what's wrong with that? And do you think people got mad at Mars for selling candy bars during the Depression? You know, do what you do and figure out how it fits into the big picture, and be unabashed at talking to your customers. They know why they love you. They know why they tried you once. You know, stay relevant to today, but you don't have to change the mission.
Fantastic advice there. Great. Then next we have a question from Heather. Do you have any advice for selling these principles up the chain to the C level? Should I focus on how this will show impact to the company's bottom line? Could you give some advice?
Well, this is actually a great time to field some surveys, isn't it? Because nobody has anything better to do. But I bet that if you craft a really good survey, you could show how your brand equity would increase by doing certain things. There were certain things that were mentioned in some of those commercials. Burger King, for example, is providing free hamburgers to nurses. That's important because that means someone's cooking hamburgers and someone's delivering them. They've got jobs going on doing that. And people notice that. Budweiser is hosting blood drives with the American Red Cross in stadiums. That means stadiums are staying open. And someone's benefiting from that in terms of the workforce. If you can make demonstrable the fact that people appreciate what you are doing in the community and for your employees, that gives you something you can't get from improving your product.
Great. Thank you for that, Kelty. Our next question comes from an anonymous attendee. Is there language or terminology that I should be sensitive to using or avoid using when advertising my small business?
Gosh, I suppose there is, but you won't know it unless you sort of bounce it off other people, will you? You never know how it's going to play. Most of the biggest mistakes were made with good intentions, right? So I think it's easy to pre-test via survey. Do a quick pre-test among your friends and family if you must, just to make sure that you're not hitting a hot button. And what's a hot button today may not be one tomorrow, and who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. A lot of it is responsive to headlines. Trying to keep to universal sentiments is usually pretty safe.
Okay, great. Next, we have a question from John. He was wondering, could you share more about how to balance being empathetic with the need to generate revenue?
Well, I am an unabashed capitalist. I believe that our country needs us. I mean, we need to succeed for our country to succeed. So I don't think that there is anything that isn't compassionate about trying to sell your product or service. I believe that the way you talk about it has to take into account the fact that you're dealing with people's fear strategies. So the whole purpose of this presentation was the way you talk about your business to people who are frightened needs to be empathetic. But your need to move forward and produce more is just reality. We need to get that done. Otherwise, people don't have health insurance and salaries, and the economy needs us.
Okay, thank you for that information. We'll do 2 more questions. The first one is from David. He said, which measures of brand equity do you favor right now during COVID-19 in particular?
That's an interesting question. I think that perhaps likability might be a good measure right now. It's an easy one to measure. And I think that your goals should be to maintain your brand's likability. You don't want to be a brand that is not likable during this period of time. Yeah, that's the one I would err on.
Great. That absolutely makes sense. And then our final question here is, you touched on a little bit in your presentation, but how do you see brands transitioning as the number of COVID cases decrease?
Well, you keep on keeping on, right? I mean, you shouldn't have deviated from your brand's mission from day one. So the minute the shops are open, the stores are open, the dealerships are open, you go back to selling as usual. And I believe that everyone is going to embrace that. I believe the new normal is going to be the old normal for the most part. you may have to, depending on the price points that you're charging, consider which products you're pushing hardest if there is a major recession going on, for example. But your goals are the same. Your strategy is the same. You should go out there and do it. Be proud.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us for today's presentation, and a special thank you again to Kelty for this great information. As a reminder, all webinar attendees will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording of this presentation. To view upcoming webinars as well as previous recordings, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. We hope you will join us for our next webinar, which is this Thursday, as Leeds School of Business's Dr. Gloria Uria shares a supply chain perspective on the COVID-19 pandemic. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day and go Buffs.